Hello here, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Wash, and Abby Barmore joining us for opening headlines as we are going to hit some volleyball discussion. But it is officially heading into Memorial Day weekend, one of my favorite weekends of the year. Kind of kicks off summer. College football magazines generally find their way into Barnes & Noble this week.
Oh, no, not this early.
Yes, sir.
Babe in Woods.
Athlon.
I thought it was more like
Athlon.
They don't all come
I question
out at once.
everything
they
Sean
sprinkle
says.
out. It starts with Athlon, ends with Phil Steele.
I don't question everything Sean says. It just feels that way. Really, they come out.
Yes. Robin and I have been doing this for years where I go in and it's either this week or next. It depends, but usually it's this week.
You go into Barnes & Noble?
I will. I live right by there.
Are you heading in? So what day are you
Thursday
going
or Friday. They'll generally roll in there. So
You're kidding me. They're out this early?
Lindy's will kind of come right out after that. Then the Phil Steele. There's just three of those things left, I think.
Feels like they're a little suspect because how would they possibly have all the personnel moves?
Well, that's why Phil Steele waits.
Right.
That's why his is the best.
Like did you hear him thank Matt Rule? He interviewed Matt Rule like this week. So he waits until the dust settles on the transfer portal and, talks to the coaches in depth after spring. Because, over the years, there's been some brutal depth charts on those things where you're like, this is not even, did you talk to like a squirrel to come up with this depth chart for Nebraska?
Well,
maybe.
I hear you. I'm not being critical of anybody when I say I feel like a magazine right now would be a little suspect.
And Lindy's is pretty good, though, because Dean Hart puts the Big Ten together for him.
Okay.
And he reaches out to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But still, it's early.
Yeah, all the player movement makes they make these magazines less appealing. I mean, let's face it, right? You can't I know this, if I'm reading about a team and I see something that's way off, I just sort of put it down. Like, okay, this is who knows where this is coming from.
Like one of these magazines will have like Dante Dowdell, like number one running back.
Yeah.
I mean, that I'm not far off though. Like they'll have something like that in Nebraska where you're like, he's not the number one running back.
Yeah, more concerning is if they don't have a transfer on the team. Like they don't even acknowledge him because he joined them late.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not going to be Nebraska.
Yeah, Jaden Mangum.
Yeah, Mangum
picked Michigan.
Yeah. Like if Mangum would have picked Nebraska,
how do they get that in the
they
magazine?
don't. That's the point. He could be a starting safety.
Well, now 1 year Frost took all those guys like in June and July, dang near.
Right. So yeah, now I don't want to rain on your parade though. You go to Barnes and Nobles and have a time.
Hey, you end up stealing. 1 year you took my magazines and you marked them all up.
It's
very
you did
possible.
just like hoard all of them.
And I'm like, that was my magazine.
Is that right?
It was supposed to be the office magazine for everyone.
It went in Sipple's backpack.
Commandeered.
He starts marking.
I need a lawyer in this show sometime.
And usually I'll
lawyer up.
I'll get the grill going. So kick off the summer.
Okay.
Big Ten baseball tournament. Hopefully you're listening to us on your drive to Omaha to watch Nebraska play here over the weekend as a big weekend. But guys, I want to kick off before we bring in Abby about Harper Murray. I want to hit on Troy Dannon. He faced really his first tough decision this past week, and we hit it on a specialty show, but just the ticketing future, the stadium plans, there was really no easy road to that because door number one was come up with $450 million and tear down the part of the stadium that has 23,000 seats with the least amount of donor dollars in it.
South Stadium,
as we like to call the municipal golf course of Memorial Stadium. Tear it down.
Questionable.
Hey, you stole it, by the way, and used my analogy on your own radio show. So you must have liked it a little bit.
It's still questionable.
I grew up sitting in the public golf course.
It could be good and questionable at the same time.
Right.
But tear that down and then displace those people for 2 years, or do what they're doing now and no displacement, upgrade east and west immediately, get those parts all kind of intertwined to the backfill of the Go Big project, which is, additional amenity and club spaces, which they're going to do. Chair back the rest of the east and the west, no displacement, and then figure out an idea or a plan for the south. But yeah, there are a lot of South Stadium ticket holders that aren't happy about the plan right now. They thought they were going to get the upgrades, and now there's no timeline on the South at this point.
Well, I mean, the good news is they're not going to be displaced for at least
23,000 people.
Right. For at least 2 years. Right. I mean, he's pushed back that part of it for at least 2 years. My understanding from reading your article, Sean, is so all of the East and West are going to be chairbacks, all of it.
They're going to upgrade. Yep, and they're going to
All of it.
they're going to yes, and they're going to do seat licensing and a reseat. So in theory, you are going to reduce capacity, and we've seen this already in different parts of the stadium. A great example would be the east balcony, the original east balcony, the kind of the old school one that hung over before the skyboxes were added.
Mm-hmm.
They took that down and added chairbacks in there, and that eliminated about 20% of the seats.
Okay.
So if that model holds true for the rest of the stadium, there will be fewer seats in East and West because of the chairbacks and the amenities.
But that is, I mean, how soon are we talking about on that part of the
Two
project?
full seasons. We're going to play this year, next year, and then what would be Dylan Raiola's 4th year at Nebraska. If we're using like a player, or excuse me, his 3rd year at Nebraska, that would be like the year that stuff would all happen.
And the AD said you have to, if you're going to do a reseat, you got to give fans at least a year's notice.
It's complicated because you've got 19,000, 18,000 accounts tied to 67,000 season tickets. But there are like companies that might have been grandfathered in that have several season tickets that are at a lower price on the new reseat, to get those seats. It's going to be a lot more money. So you're going to see some people either have to make a tough financial decision to upgrade and pay the new freight, or downgrade and not pay as much as before, because they're going to get rid of this grandfathering thing too, which is really unique only to Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, this whole situation is something where, like, no matter what you do and what approach you take, people are going to be upset about it because it's unavoidable just because of the level of disruption that inherently will have to take place. I mean, no matter what you do, there's going to be inconveniences and setbacks for fans, for games, and for pricing, and for season ticket inheritance and all that sort of stuff. So I like the approach that they're doing. I thought that Trev's plan was very ambitious, and probably too much so, to where like they were trying to swallow the elephant whole as opposed to taking it bite by bite. And so this way, I think you're going at it with a much more level-headed approach where you're just doing little bits here, little bits there, to eventually, in maybe a longer period of time and probably much less expensive. Maybe. I mean, if you space it out, you're able to at least do the things you need to do with as little inconvenience as possible. But again, there's no way to go about this without upsetting and ruffling some feathers.
Well, and the grandfathering thing had been kind of getting out of hand too. I mean, to the point where, the university had begun checking obituaries because they're older ticket holders, and then their families would take those tickets at the grandfather pricing, but they were only meant to be for that person,
for a living person.
And so they would check. I mean, I know this for a fact. And
like voter fraud.
I remember one year, this is 2011, like the first year of the Big Ten, I bought my wife 2 tickets to go to games, and found it on eBay or wherever, met this guy, and it was a younger guy in his 40s, and it was at his 50s maybe even, and it was like at his 90-some-year-old mom's house, and it was their tickets, and I met him there to buy the tickets for my wife to go to the games that year. And I think a lot of that, I mean, there was a lot of that, like Aunt Betty couldn't make it, but the kids gladly took the tickets, and it will be interesting to see once they eliminate that grandfather price, what that does to the lot of tickets, because those people aren't going to have as many priority points as the people that have been paying full freight over the same amount of time.
Wow, Dan, and I mean, this is going to be an enormous challenge. It's funny when you hire an AD, everybody's like, Robin, isn't he a great guy? He just seems like a great guy. Okay, now 3 years from now, there's going to be a lot of people.
And we don't know this
he's
for
an ass.
We don't know this for sure, but priority points are probably how you have to do this. I mean, there's really no other way to do a reseat other than rank it by priority points. And maybe you can put in a years of tickets held bonus in there. There's going to be but it's the priority point thing will be sticky because some longtime people with grandfather pricing in 50-yard line seats may not have as many priority points as a guy that sits in the front of the south end zone.
Well, I just hope that the demand stays. I mean, all this occurs in the context of Matt Rule trying to build his program to a point where there's a heavy demand for tickets. I mean, there's still a good demand. I think there's a good demand. I mean, we haven't talked at all about the sellout streak.
Yeah, like this year,
He wasn't asked about that, was he?
No.
You met with them along with 6 or 7 other reporters. The sellout streak never came up.
No, and I mean the Colorado game is going to sell the tickets out. That's my theory all along. You can get a season ticket package. Last year they were $320. Normally they were about $420. They took $100 off for the 100th anniversary. But that Colorado ticket alone is worth $300.
Thank you, Dion, for saving the sellout streak.
Leave it up to Deion Sanders to save Nebraska's last.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you
Just
just buy the whole package? You get the Colorado ticket, and then you got 6 other games to figure out. But
right.
All right, I want to bring Abby in here too. I'm sorry, Abby, to keep you waiting over here. But Harper Murray came out with a statement this week on her own, just about what she's dealing with, and it was confirmed as well by the Lincoln police that she was charged in a shoplifting incident that we knew about from social media pictures that surfaced at Shields. What is next now, in your opinion, with Harper Murray?
I think for Harper, it was a big step for her to actually say something publicly, because this has been maybe a month or so that she's been having all these legal issues. But I think the next step for her is to kind of figure out what she's going through. Seems like she's going through something mentally and emotionally. And she said in her statement that after some time passes, she wouldn't be afraid to talk about that and, get her experience across and hopefully help others. So I think that, a lot of people in the athletic program, coaches, maybe even Troy Dannon, are trying to help her get through this hard time, because, she just had a couple of mishaps. It's not like she's a terrible person. So I hope that they can figure it out.
Abby, she has a red shirt she could use. I mean, is it out of the question that she could just sit out next year and kind of deal with this? Or is it just too speculative even to think what's next at this point?
Yeah, it's hard to think that she would use her red shirt, because it's kind of rare now in college volleyball. And if you want to redshirt somebody, sometimes they just end up leaving, even if you redshirt them. So they might keep her out for a couple of matches. It just depends on where her headspace is, and if she can, get back on the right track and, stay out of the eyes of the law, hopefully a little bit here.
I think what Sean might be getting at is just, if you're a coaching decision, might be to say, get your stuff in order, sit out this season. I mean, it might make sense.
But she's got some time though too. She's got a few months here. No. So it'll just depend on where she is.
Yeah, John Cook, it's never easy to be a coach, but these are the tough decisions that coaches really face as they manage their roster. But when we come back, I want to talk more, guys, about recruiting. Nebraska's 2025 quarterback recruit TJ Lateef was announced in the Elite 11 this week. We'll weigh in on that and more. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we take you here through this Memorial Day week. And before we get into some Elite 11 TJ Lateef talk, this segment of the Husker Online Show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. With Father's Day right around the corner, what do you give to the man who has everything? Easy. You give him an experience I'll never forget. You give him Omaha Steaks, because a world-class dad deserves a world-class steak. Isn't that right, Steve Sipple?
Yeah. Even if you don't have everything, this would be good.
The Father's Day experts,
I don't have everything.
The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to put a smile on the big guy's face this summer with hand-selected gift packages starting at just $89. Just go to omahasteaks.com and use the promo code HuskerOnline at checkout for an additional discount when you shop gourmet gift packages for Father's Day. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless flavor, endless variety, and endless value. Truly, they have perfected more than steak, and your dad is guaranteed to love every bite. Pick from premium proteins like pork chops, air-chilled chicken, beefy burgers. Go to omahasteaks.com and remember, use that promo code HuskerOnline to get exclusive savings. Shop for the unforgettable gifts that are guaranteed to make Dad's day, because if there's one thing Omaha Steaks knows, it's that dads want steak. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code HuskerOnline at checkout to save on this exclusive package starting at $89. Thank you again to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, TJ Lateef in the Elite 11, guys. It's now the third Nebraska quarterback to make the Elite 11 over the last 2 years, joining Daniel Kalen, joining Dylan Raiola. Quite a coup for the quarterback recruiting here at Nebraska.
It really is. And I love what he said. I love what TJ Lateef told Brian Munson, which is this. I think that this is another opportunity to compete against the best. He wants to compete. He said you'll be able to see who produces and who doesn't. That's a good sign. If you think about it, Rob, Sean, if you're recruiting a player, especially a quarterback, in a Big Ten quarterback, Power 4 quarterback, he better have that element, the competitive element.
Mm-hmm.
You got to weigh it, and you got to figure that. You really got to figure that part out. If that kid is loaded with talent but doesn't really like to compete, you can't pull the trigger. So him saying that, in approaching it that way, because it's not really I guess it's a competition, but he could come out and say, I just want to go there and get better as an individual. I'm just all about improving my game. It's that, but the fact that he would come out and say, I want to go compete. That's a good sign.
Yeah, it's and I think he's under the radar to a lot of people but he's a good quarterback.
Number 25 in the country. He'd probably be one of the lower rated ones at this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Elite 11 has changed. Originally, they would take 11 plus a wild card. Now they take 25, I believe, around that number, and then they come up with an list of an 11 at the end.
He's number 25 in the On3 industry ranking among the nation's quarterbacks. He's the number 25 player in the state of California, so he's pretty highly
And he was
ranked.
the 14th quarterback selected or invited to this.
It's great.
He's the third Big Ten commit, joining Julian Lewis from USC and Tavian St. Clair from Ohio State.
Here's why it's great too, because they at this Elite 11 camp. We've written about this stuff. I wrote about last summer. One of the elements that they teach is how to handle being a quarterback in college, how to handle the media, how to handle being a public figure, all of that. And all of that is very germane to Nebraska. This is a hard job. I mean, one thing I've learned covering this program over, 25 plus years, is the quarterback that's a hard job here. I mean, you're an enormous public figure. Everybody's watching you. And but they teach you about that. That's one of the things.
Yeah, I forgot we had Brian Stump on, who's one of the directors. We had him on last year.
Yeah,
talk about Daniel Kalen when he was at the Elite 11. I've known Brian for over 20 years. I mean, he's been helping run that Elite 11 for many, many years. There's been Nebraska quarterbacks that have been in this before, but the run that they're on is about the best they've ever had. I mean, Josh Freeman, Blaine Gabbert, I want to say Harrison Beck.
God, you would think
was in there for sure. Gabbert and Freeman. Johnny Stanton was in the Elite 11.
Was O'Brien?
Patrick O'Brien may have been. I think he might have been.
Yeah, he was. I'm going to say he was.
But like Adrian was not, because he's hurt.
Yeah,
he's coming off injury. Adrian Martinez.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been that many.
No. So this is a coup. It is. It's great. It was. I saw it last night. I just thought this is great news. And then when I saw his comments, this is good. This is a good picture. It'll be interesting to follow.
And they play his high school team, Lutheran High School in Orange County. They play one of the toughest schedules in the country.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they play everybody. So he's going to be well tested. This is not some guy playing small league football. I mean, TJ Lateef will come to Nebraska as trained as anybody as far as the schedule he faced in high school.
When you just read about his the scout takes on his physical talent. I mean, you talked about the competitiveness and kind of the mental makeup he has. I think just physically, he might open some eyes during this event too, to where he's the 25th quarterback now. That could change if he puts on a good enough show,
right,
on this stage.
That for sure. Yeah, and one of the things a scout says, he fits the modern offense. He throws well on the run. He moves out of the pocket and throws
accuracy
it well
too.
Yeah, and he puts a lot of velocity on the ball. And I've watched him. He's the thing that really striking to me is he reminds me of Dylan, and that it makes it look really easy. That's a good sign.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show, and recruiting for Nebraska. This is the final week. Coaches are on the road.
Okay,
so they'll get off the road this week. They'll get a little bit of a breather and then they'll hit the road the first week of June for the first 2 satellite camps, and they're going to do the same ones again, Belton, Texas, at Mary Hardin Baylor, and then Houston Christian. And then they'll come back to Lincoln and have their own camps here. So that's kind of the gist of the schedule for Nebraska moving forward here. Memorial Day weekend is a dead week, though. There's not going to be any recruiting activity going on over the holiday before things ramp back up in that final May weekend.
Was it the same last year when those guys showed up in Belton? Were they coming off a break, the assistant coaches? It felt like they were.
No,
Yeah,
because they ran a camp in Lincoln on Sunday.
Okay, then they flew down.
And then they flew down Sunday.
They were tired. That's a tired bunch of dudes last year.
They flew down Sunday. They ran a camp and then ran the camp two-a-day on Monday.
Yeah,
and then they had a coach's social Monday night in Houston.
Yeah, see, they were haggard. I mean, they were tired. Those guys were. They were working. This is not a break time for those guys.
No,
they're working.
Well, now Rule, to his credit, when they get that dead period, he lets those guys go.
What's the dead period?
It's after June 23rd.
Okay, yeah.
So they're
not there yet.
There's a full month
mm-hmm.
where he lets those guys get away.
Yeah.
Go on vacation, get with their family, go golfing, whatever. Just have some time away, and he wants them away from the players.
Yeah, away from everything. I would lay in a dark room and stare at the ceiling for about 3 days, I think.
You'd just be down at Key West looking for orange shirts.
What is that supposed to mean, Sean?
By the way, Steve Sipple he's going to go buy another orange shirt.
No, I'm not. I'm going to buy another color. But I'm going to
Target.
Yeah, I'm going back to Target. I'm going to play the card again.
You going to the North 48th Target?
Yes, the one, by O Street.
We have this joke. Sipple does not cross O very often.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't venture south.
He doesn't slum it in South Lincoln.
Yeah, I get dirty looks down the south.
You're like my mom. She never would. She didn't ever leave South Omaha. She liked it down. She didn't want to leave.
People ask him if he's lost when he
people when I'm down south, they'll be like, Sipple, you're a little far south, aren't you?
A little out of your context.
Make a wrong turn. Better head north,
south,
son.
aren't you?
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk Big Ten TV schedules and what we might learn about Nebraska's schedule next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett here. And before we get into some schedule discussion, as we're going to learn the kickoff times here in the coming days, this segment of the Husker Online Show is brought to you by our friends at Mando. Premium products, deodorants, body sprays. It's getting that time of year. You're going to get hot. You're going to get sweaty outside. You got to take care of yourself and get the right stuff. Mando is premium products. They're 100% natural, organic, fragrance, oil-free. They're dermatologist recommended, and we've got a great deal here for our Husker Online listeners here. You're going to get the Mando starter pack for new customers, and it comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the body wash or the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And we've got a discount code as well that's going to give you $5 off the starter pack. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use the promo code Husker at shopmando.com. Once again, get that Mando starter pack for over 40% off with the promo code Husker at shopmando.com. This is for new customers of Mando. Thank you again to Mando for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, guys, I'm always fascinated by the kickoff times because in a state like Nebraska, it means a lot. People really, really plan their lives around bye weekends and Saturday games. And there's a lot of new things with the Big Ten schedule this year, unlike years past. Number one, we got NBC and CBS now fully integrated into the lineup. A year ago, it was kind of a flex option with CBS. They were still at the SEC, and NBC was just getting going. And then number two, the Friday night lineup is going to be beefed up where there's, to my understanding, a Friday night game every week.
That's fun.
So you're going to have besides the Black Friday tilt, Nebraska is going to have a Friday night game.
Tilt. And they'll have a Friday night game no matter what, you think?
Yes. And what's interesting is logical sense to be like, okay, Illinois or Indiana or Purdue. Okay. Perfect Friday night games, right? On the road, wrong. And let me tell you why. The Big Ten Conference lets you pick your homecoming game, kickoff time and day.
Okay.
Nobody plays their homecoming game on Friday. They play it on Saturday.
Yeah. Not Friday
Well,
night.
Look at this schedule for Nebraska. Purdue game, September 28th in West Lafayette. It's their homecoming game.
Okay.
That's going to be on a Saturday, not a Friday.
Get that schedule back up there, Megan.
Indiana on the road. She's still pulling it up. Indiana on the road, October 19th. That is the Hoosiers' homecoming game. So that cannot be a Friday night game.
Okay.
Then you got Ohio State in Columbus.
Okay. Don't tell me.
That's also their homecoming game. So that can't be on a Friday, which it wouldn't be on a Friday.
No.
Then USC, another road game for Nebraska. That is the Trojans' homecoming game.
Would they have put that one on a Friday night?
Not homecoming.
Well, I know, but if it weren't homecoming,
I doubt it. Now, Sam McEwen and I debated that. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it would be more prime to be a West Coast or a night game on NBC because of the weather, and that's a safer outdoor game.
Yeah, I would hope they wouldn't have. I don't want to get into a protracted debate on this, but I would hope that the powers that be would not put that game on a Friday night. Too much tradition.
So then Iowa, we already know, is Black Friday. That's going to be now. Get this: the Chiefs play at 2:00 on Black Friday this year against the Raiders. So that game, Iowa, Nebraska, presumably will be at 11 again.
Okay.
Unless it gets moved to that NBC window that we saw a year ago,
which would be at night.
But the Chiefs Raiders are at 2:00 on Black Friday.
Here's to an 11 a.m. kickoff, and Matt Rule would agree with me. Remember, Matt Rule likes 11 a.m. kickoffs. Let's get it going. That's what he likes.
But my question is, where's the Friday game going to be? Because for Nebraska,
you know where it's going to be.
Is it going to be in Lincoln? I mean, because they cannot play there's no chance of a road Friday night game.
You know what's going
by the law, by the rules of the scheduling.
Say it, Sean.
I'm not going to be the bearer of bad news here, but not one of the road games can be a Friday night game.
Hello, Bielema. Friday night, the big man.
Yeah, so then you start
Friday
to look
night
at
with the big man,
or maybe UCLA. But could we see that this is going to be? And we should know this week, but.
This week.
Yeah. Joel Klatt on a podcast said this week that the Friday night games are expected to drop this week. Whoa. And then next week, the remainder. But
what do you think,
said,
Sean? Illinois?
Probably Illinois, maybe UCLA.
Yeah, those are the only two that make sense.
Because Rutgers is Nebraska's homecoming. But this homecoming clause has protected any logical road game from Friday night.
It's 4 homecoming road games.
And then Black Friday. So there's no physical way Nebraska could play a Friday night road game this year.
UCLA on a Friday, that doesn't fit to me. Illinois makes sense.
Yeah, the Illinois would make sense, but like if they did UCLA, I wouldn't be worked up about it.
Interesting that late in the season of Friday night.
That's a game that like USC or like the more established, I won't say rivalries or whatever it is, but like the pairings. That I want that on Saturday. UCLA, yeah, Friday's fine. Like that doesn't do much for me.
So if this will be unprecedented. They played the game in 9/11, at Nebraska, but if they do this in Nebraska, this will be. It's going to be, but it's out of their control. First of all, the Big Ten makes the decisions, and secondly, there's not a physical road game that they can play on Friday this year.
Will it be unpopular?
Do you remember the backlash when they played a road Friday night game?
Well, they've done it
when they first started doing that.
They've done it multiple times.
Like the high school football community around here was outraged, and I get it. Like there's the Fridays for high school. I get that. But now you're talking about not just having a game on TV that you're competing against, a home game. And people aren't going to be in town. They're going to be traveling to Lincoln.
And it used to be just 3 or 4 Friday games for the Big Ten schedule.
Yep.
Now it's every week.
Crazy. It's interesting
because of Fox. Now this game will be on Fox.
Okay.
So you'll get a great viewing audience. But yeah, this is something to watch because
it is.
Like I think before we knew what we knew, you're like, okay, Indiana or Purdue Friday night, no brainer, right? Wrong. Those are homecoming days. So like it's off the table. There's no, they're going to play a Friday night game. And if the homecoming rule is what we believe it to be, which we know that's the case, the Big Ten lets you pick your homecoming kickoff time.
I wonder how much of this is a reaction to the NFL creeping into the college football territory. How they're playing games Thursdays. Even Fridays now, Saturday, Sunday, like Monday. Like The NFL is basically just trying to hoard all of the prime football viewing windows. And so maybe the Big Ten is viewing, and the networks associated with the Big Ten are viewing Friday night as a window that the NFL is not going to tread on that much.
The NFL hasn't hit that Friday night
Mhm.
window. Have
They're getting on Black Friday.
Black Friday now.
They're trying to steal,
but not
Friday window.
during September and October.
So does that make the UCLA game more appealing just because that's when the flex scheduling starts getting rolling for the NFL?
Yeah.
And maybe they start flexing to some Saturdays.
My thinking on this is tip your cap to Fox for this Friday night idea. It's good. It's a good one.
Yeah.
People, I'll watch. I like,
but there's consequences, man. Like I mean, the small communities, like where high school football games are such a big deal.
Well,
like,
I'm not big on Nebraska playing a home game.
That's what I'm saying. Like
if that plays out that way,
but if they're,
that's a real consequence.
I know. I'm talking about other games. Watching Indiana play somebody on a Friday night. Watching Ohio State play somebody on a Friday night if it happens.
Now,
Whoever.
Ohio State and Michigan supposedly will never have to host a front, but
good God.
But for them though, the reason the Big Ten TV contract is valued at what it is because Ohio State and Michigan play on Saturdays at noon.
Okay.
And they draw numbers.
Yeah.
They're not ever going to put Ohio State or Michigan on a Friday. They're
not even on the road.
No, they're too valuable.
Okay.
If the three big networks want them. Now, the contract for TV also requires you to have one non-conference game and one conference game on BTN. Okay. So if you ever notice, it's always Ohio State Rutgers or Ohio State Maryland on BTN. That's their one BTN game they have to play. You have to play one BTN game for conference and one for non-conference. Now the UTEP game.
Ohio State hasn't played on a Friday night.
I
said. Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Penn State
all right,
has.
Rune Arledge. Penn State.
Penn State has played Maryland on the road on a Friday.
They played Purdue on a Friday. Hello.
Yeah, but Ohio State and Michigan though again
they won't do it.
They won't. They're protected. So this will be a big talking point, especially if it drops this week and we're learning that Nebraska could play a Friday night possible home game. I mean, that's
huge. Huge news.
So
there'll be huge news when Fox drops that Friday night schedule. I mean, I'm really interested in that.
And maybe Ohio State or Michigan will slide into it. I doubt it though. I mean, because Fox would rather have those teams for big noon kickoff and whatnot. But yeah, this adds a whole new twist. It's basically a fourth TV window of value.
Yep. Hey, Ohio State played Northwestern in Evanston in 2019
on a Friday.
On a Friday,
I thought I've seen them on a Friday. So yeah, I think Sean's right. I don't think they don't want it, but I knew they
would never do a home game.
Right.
Yeah, and usually the trend on Friday games has been let's find a brand and put them in a stadium that doesn't have huge crowds.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like that.
Like Purdue, like Rutgers, like Illinois, like Maryland, like Indiana.
Right.
You know, in Northwestern, but that's not the case. I mean, like this is going to be interesting to watch because there's no physical road game window that Nebraska could have on Friday night this year.
Wow. I'm looking forward to that Fox announcement. Today we're taping. It's Tuesday. We're probably a few days away.
And Joel Klatt made it sound like possibly Thursday. So we'll see. All right. Abby Barmore will rejoin the show next. We'll take your questions in the mailbag. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washed as we get into the mailbag. But before we do that, Stephen M. Sipple, this segment of the Husker Online Show is brought to you by who?
Larson Motors. Let's sell some cars here, fellas. If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one spot. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. Start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals.
That's all. It's real. All right.
All right. Let's get into the mailbag and welcome back Abby Barmore to the show. Where are we starting off, Abby?
Who do you think is going to be the top 3 pass rushers for the Huskers this next season?
Ooh, there's a question.
Lenhart.
Cam Lenhart.
Prince Will.
Ty Robinson.
But James Williams.
Those are 4 excellent
Jamari
candidates. You better put Jamari Butler in there because he had 5.5. Hey, hold on, Sean. Jamari Butler had 5.5 sacks last year. Let's come with some facts. I mean, that's your leading candidate.
I thought the leading guy in sacks was Nash Hutmacher last year with 5.5. I just did the defensive line breakdown.
Well, that's bad stats. Jamari Butler had 5.5. I think Nash had 4.5.
Now I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, look that up.
I just literally did this breakdown this week. And
Okay, so pick 3 out of that group.
Okay, Jamari Butler, number
So you're
1.
going Butler. Hey, Lenhart's up there for me.
Lenhart.
He's a dude.
Yeah.
Princewell.
And Princewell. Those are the 3.
James Williams, like, is he going to get enough reps?
Right.
Yeah, will he
That's the
play
question.
enough snaps to be in that conversation?
That's the question. I think.
Yeah,
that,
Jamari Butler, you're right. 5.5. Nash Hutmacher, 4.5.
Bam.
Cam Lenhart, 3. James Williams had 2.
Don't forget who's the king, Sean.
All kings wear orange. Yeah, my Ty Robinson take is kind of cold right now. He only had 1 sack
Right.
last year.
He might lead the team in batted balls. He does. He gets a lot of that. He's 6'6".
Well, and he creates sacks with the double teams he commands. So
Yeah.
He only had 4 TFLs last year,
Mhm.
too. You'd like to see, though, somebody on this team push 7 or 8 sacks.
Yes, you would. Or
Yeah.
Sean, how about 10?
you're thinking of
10's
Nash
hard,
too.
though.
How about 10?
You play Colorado, though, and if Shedeur Sanders is going to drop back 50 times, there's sack opportunities.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
he'll hold on to the ball too, because he's going to try to chuck it deep and get yards.
You do have to look at the schedule and see. I mean, there has to be opportunity for someone.
USC will be a game with sack opportunities.
Mhm. But Sean, someone pushing 10 shouldn't be out of the question. It shouldn't be.
You got to have a pro.
Randy Gregory had 13.5.
You cannot get 10 sacks in this league if you're not a pro.
No, you're right.
I mean, you got to be a pro guy.
You got to be. Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson had 10, for instance, maybe over that, but I know he got double
Eight
figures.
is like usually towards the top of the league.
Yeah, Eric Martin got 8. He was a convert. I mean, he was even they converted him. They made him into a pass rusher.
Khalil Davis, I believe, got 9.5 or 10.
Khalil Davis in the NFL, by the way.
And then Randy.
Yeah, Randy. Randy was a pass rusher deluxe. I mean, he was a dragster coming off the edge, a human dragster.
Remember South Carolina in the 2011 season in the Capital One Bowl?
Mhm.
It was Clowney and then the other guy that
I can't remember the other guy, but I remember
Oh.
Clowney.
Guy playing for the Chargers. I remember who it was. Yeah.
they were unreal.
Mhm.
He was a
Like-
first. They were both first rounders.
Melvin Ingram.
It was Melvin Ingram.
It was Melvin Ingram and Clowney. Good God.
Well, and then the receiver who was the receiver that South Carolina had?
Jeffrey.
Yeah, all Sean Jeffrey went at it with Dennard, and they went at it. They went at it.
Dennard got Jeffrey thrown out of the game.
Yep, they went at it.
All right, next question.
Are Nebraska and Troy Dannon going to prioritize connecting the entire stadium so you can walk all the way around it?
It's the money. I
That's a
mean,
good question.
I want to do it, but I think again, it's the displacement of fans, particularly your grassroots blue collar fans in South Stadium. How long can you displace those people and not give your fans seats? And then what's the cost and where's the money coming from in a time right now where there are so many questions about the money as far as settlements, lawsuits, and there's a lot going on as we speak this week about this. I mean, my head explodes when I read all these lawsuit things. Like I read Ross Dellinger's tweets every day, and I'm like, how in the hell does he keep up with all this stuff?
No.
It's really.
Should have paid more attention to mass media law.
I don't know. Yeah.
I know the group of 5 are really not happy right now. And the non-football Division 1s are really upset because they're going to get hammered with charges as far as money they owe.
Back money.
Yes.
To athletes from the 4 years before the creation of NIL, essentially, is what we're talking.
And somehow the group of 5 or the non-power league schools are going to make up 60% of the money, and the power 4 are only going to have to pay 40%.
Ooh, I thought it was the reverse, but
No,
okay.
and they're really upset about that.
Yeah, they should.
As they should be.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to
I mean,
happen.
college athletics has become mostly about greed, and I'm concerned about it being so off-putting to people that popularity is affected. I mean, if you read comments to these stories, it's hard to not come to the conclusion that it's starting. On the other hand, if you look at stadiums, they're full, and if you watch the playoff, the games like Alabama, Michigan, the Rose Bowl, there wasn't any empty seats, and it was enormously entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to reconcile it all in my head.
Well,
right now.
I mean, the college football you grew up with in the 80s and the 90s.
Well, that was when it was at its height.
And it was, I don't want to say it was break even. I mean, they made some money, but it was more or less a break even operation.
It was, and money's always been important, and it's always been an emphasis, but never. It wasn't like it is now.
Like they would profit, a few $1 million. I mean, they would profit some money.
Let's put it this way, Robin and Sean. It wasn't, and Abby, God bless you. It wasn't a big topic of conversation. Now it's the topic of conversation.
Because you're trying
That's
to
all we talk about.
You're building like professional franchises now.
How are we paying the players? How much they getting?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do this with your stadium in the context of all that?
Yeah,
it's just a big money discussion.
Recruitment is dealing with agents and not even the parents.
Right.
Like you're talking to an agent.
Yeah, home visit. What?
Well, in this
home
new
visit, win the living room. Yeah, how about write a check?
Yeah.
The settlement where they're going to get money from the TV rights every year, collective bargaining is, in essence, it's still not going to get rid of collectives. So, like, wasn't all of this supposed to happen to get rid of that third party element that has driven up the prices? No. I mean, now you're going to get this collective bargaining. That's every school is going to get $20 million-ish every year from their TV money to pay. But the collectives are still going to be there.
Not every school is going to. The group of five is not getting 20 million.
So you're going to get Big Ten teams of 20 million plus what their collectives do.
Right.
I mean, you're just going to separate teams even that much more.
Right. Jeez. That's the main issue probably.
Because Nebraska's not even paying out 20 million right now, close to it. I mean,
there's schools that are.
There's two
and
in
now
the
they're
Big
getting
Ten.
Another 20.
Like Ohio State and Oregon are probably the two in the Big Ten that are.
Are they at the 20 million?
And I would say Nebraska, if I had a guess, is in like a 12 to 15 range. If I had to put a guess today.
Okay.
But
just for football.
Just for football.
Just for football. Wow.
And you're going to give everybody 20 for all sports, but then the collective still will be there. All right. Final question, Abby.
We got through a record number 2 questions. So good job, team. Okay. Last one. There are all kinds of people graduating these last couple of weeks, and this weekend is LPS's graduation. So do you have any funny graduation stories?
Well, my college one, I nearly missed it. I went out with my good friend that I lived, my roommate, Nick Christensen, and we went out. I remember we went to Grandmother's on 70th and
good spot.
Had a good start to the night with the nacho plates and
it was a night.
Then we went out to a couple parties, and it was like, I'm done with school. And I had this whole plan. I'm like, I'm not shaving all week. I'm going to shave the great morning of graduation, be perfectly shaven, cleaned up, had my new outfit and stuff ready to wear for graduation. My alarm didn't go off. And you had to it's a 9:00 graduation.
I have no idea.
But I woke up like 5 minutes or right when it started. And so like I couldn't shower. Was not able to shave, and I just threw on what I had, and I drove down to Devaney, and I walked in late. I was like, they escorted me into my seat late.
They did escort you though.
Yeah,
well, that's kind
of. They brought me into my seat late. I got lucky.
Yeah,
but it was a close call. About
slept through the alarm, or you didn't have an alarm?
And all my family was in Devaney, but I had just Shannon Terry had hired me at that point. I had a job. I was going to San Antonio with you for the Alamo Bowl. Like a week later in 03.
Okay. 03.
So it was wild times, but yeah, I about missed it.
Rob?
I didn't walk for college.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't either.
My parents didn't really care, so I didn't care. So high school graduation, we did our senior prank at Lincoln High going into the 2001 graduation. And what we did, it was really stupid. We went around and like progressively collected like yard signs and lawn ornaments, basically just like stole and like hoarded all these things. And then like the last week of school, we snuck out in the night and then like put all of the signs, ornaments like gnomes and deer and all that stuff in the front lawn of Lincoln High School. And we thought it was like going to be the greatest prank ever. But we show up the next morning for school and there's nothing there. The custodians had arrived at like 5 or 6 in the morning and cleared it all out. So we did all that work for months to not even like have any reward for it. Then like
all that stealing.
Yes. A few days later, somebody
all that theft
tells somebody, and then that somebody tells a teacher, and it gets back that this group of knuckleheads did this, and they reported to the police.
Theft.
Yeah, and so we had to drive around with a cop, and like individually give back all the gnomes, and like we had to go tell them where we still like took it from. It was really embarrassing.
Did you remember?
Yeah. Well,
Did you get yelled at by any of the people?
no, they were just like, "What are you doing? Like, thanks for giving my gnome back." And then so as a result, they let me walk through graduation, but they just handed me like the little holder that didn't have a diploma in it. So like I got to like get my little thing
He's a hoodlum.
across.
If I would have known all this, I wouldn't have hired you.
Yeah, I know. It's statute of limitations.
Who are you?
Yeah, well, I'm reformed. And so then I had to come back the week after school got out and like do community service around the school, like clean the lockers and do all this stuff before they actually gave me my physical diploma.
They
That
would
is
never,
incredible.
they would never make you do that.
It was a
now.
mess. Yeah, I just told my parents. I was like, yeah, they lost it. They didn't have it printed out. So they're
Your parents didn't know.
Now they I hope your dad,
Is this the first time they found out?
yeah, this is the first time it's been publicly
your
put on
dad, the
record.
esteemed jazz musician, Dr. Wash.
Sorry, Bob and Margaret.
Wow. I don't have anything like that. I just had to get an accounting project done at the 11th hour that was I was struggling with badly.
Mr. Gifted program.
Yeah, I was in the gifted program. Thank
Of course
you.
you were.
That's amazing, Rob.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
it was a highlight and a low light all at the same time.
Yeah. You're prowling around Lincoln,
Just-
stealing from yards.
Just pillaging North Lincoln yards.
Yes, scaring people.
North Lincoln, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's where the trouble is.
Wow.
All right, Abby, did you have a great graduation
All right.
story for us?
Sean's
Um,
embarrassed.
The one I can think of right now is at my sister's high school graduation. One of her classmates did a backflip off of the stage that was like,
Whoa.
I don't know, like 10 feet tall or something, and he shattered both his heels.
Oh.
10.
Literally-
At college or high school?
High school.
Oh.
It was terrible to see. And
Where
then,
was
like, right
this?
away, he like hobbled back to his seat. Gosh.
Where was that?
High school graduation, my sister's.
What school?
East, Lincoln East, class
Whoa.
of 2018.
And this is a reminder to stay away from the post office parking lot this weekend because LPS graduations are going on and all day Saturday, Sunday. If
And
you're listening to our show and you think you can park in this slot, they will tow you.
And
They
Friday
will.
night,
I
too,
did
to have
last year,
graduation.
though.
Yeah,
for
you got to,
graduation.
but they check it.
But I had a pat, but I parked here. Perfect.
There's people that think the handicap spots for the post office apply to go in Pinnacle Bank Arena, and they find out real quick they'll get towed.
They do not.
All right, when we
Yeah,
come
don't
back,
chance it.
we're going to hit on some basketball and more. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. Before we get into some basketball discussion with Robin Washett, if you're not a member of Husker Online, a great time to take advantage of an offer we have for our YouTube listeners. We're going to give you how many months, Steve Sipple?
Is it 2?
2 months.
2 for $1.
And
$1.
$1. And Steve Sipple might just Venmo you that buck.
Yeah, let's not start spending my money, Sean.
But 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1 is going to get you this offer to Husker Online. Take advantage of it. 2 months, $1. Promo code NU1 at HuskerOnline.com. This is an offer just for our YouTube and podcast listeners to take advantage of. So get on that deal. But Robin, let's get into the hoops discussion because Nebraska is still mining the transfer portal. Not a lot of gold left in the transfer portal, but you know they brought in a really notable name here this past week.
Yeah. You want to try to say it?
Do you like how I set that up?
You did. All right. So I did some research on this. His name is Berke Büktunçal,
Where's he from?
Bursa, Turkey.
You don't have to talk like you're Turkish.
Büktunçal.
I love
But
when
no,
Robin
because
goes
that's how you
into
get the
full like foreigner
full-
mode.
full-
Because it,
Turkish
like I
mode.
listened to it, like how like he says it. Büktunçal. Shul. Okay. Anyway,
What's he?
6'9", 245 pound
Okay.
forward from UCLA.
6'9", 245.
Yes, from Turkey. Nebraska needs a stretch four type big that can create spacing, be a threat on the perimeter, and he does exactly that. Now, his season was kind of hindered by injury. He's in and out of the lineup. Like he started the year not even cleared yet by the NCAA, and then he kind of was in and out of the lineup because of injury. So his stats, 26 games, 8 starts, only 4.5 points, 2.5 rebounds. You know, there's nothing that jumps out, but anyone that like delves into the scouting of this guy and like what people that have watched him play internationally before UCLA say about him, he's a legitimate NBA prospect.
Whoa.
ESPN's
Whoa.
most recent mock draft was put out maybe a couple months ago still has him as the number 42 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. And that's after a mediocre first season at UCLA. So the idea is you get a player like that with that skill set in Fred Hoiberg's system. Not only does Nebraska need that, but guys that fit that bill generally flourish. It's a win-win scenario. So he visited last week. So there's finally some traction there. His name had been floated around for a while. He finally got on campus last week, and that was his second visit. BYU was his first. So those are the two front runners at this point. And it's been a extremely quiet recruitment. And I think part of that is just the nature of portal recruiting now, with the money being thrown out and the agents being involved. Like, there's just not a lot of info that gets put out there, just because it's a business deal. The other part of it too is, the international aspect that, Nebraska's working primarily with his agent in Turkey. And so, I think there's probably some back and forth going on there. So not a lot to report as to where things stand coming out of that visit. And, there's always the fear that the longer this plays out, the more opportunity other schools could possibly get involved. I know Texas was a name that via message board, social media had been connected as a team that was starting to try to show some interest late. So for Nebraska, ideally, would like to close this thing as quickly as possible just to avoid that. But there's really no timeline on that. He can take as long as he wants. In Nebraska, I mean, there's, like you said, Sean, there's not a lot of other options out there that would be like a no-brainer plan B. So they're going to let it play out. But right now, the two known top contenders, BYU, Nebraska, and we'll see if anybody else gets involved.
What's the timeline? I mean,
They can go all the way to the start of the fall semester.
Hey, Robin, the draft stuff is going on too, the preparation. What about Tominaga? Is he going to, is he a part of the combine?
No. No, he did not get a combine invite. He's working with an agency based out of Chicago. And so that a lot of times the agencies will do their own pro days where they actually hosted theirs at the site of the combine, like just before it. I think it was this past week on Thursday, I believe. So like he's getting exposure in that, because like there'll be a scout from every NBA team at a deal like that, just to look at guys. So, the next question is, after the combine, does he get an individual team workout? Like last year he worked out with the Pacers. And he did really well. So that's probably going to be his best opportunity, is an event like that he did last week with his agency pro day. And then what comes after the combine with the small group individual workouts with individual teams.
And then from there, like if he went overseas, is it a foregone conclusion he'd go to Japan, or would he play somewhere in Europe? Or
I'd assume Japan. I mean, he's a star over there and he would command the most money over there. And he's also playing in the Olympics. So he'll be there anyway. So I would assume it's kind of a no-brainer there that if the NBA doesn't work out, that's where he'll end up.
The NBA, I mean, if we're just being frank, is a long shot.
Yeah.
I'd say a very long shot.
I mean, maybe a G League, but is that a route that he wants to take? He'd probably make more money playing Japan.
My guess is he'd make a lot more money, maybe 20 times more money.
Well, in the G League with NIL and college basketball keeping players longer and they're making more money, the G League is a shell of
fading
itself.
out. Yeah.
Like they said they've got a real problem now with the G League.
You just never rule him out because he's such an elite shooter. I mean, so you can't, and he did improve his overall game, but man, he's just a defensive liability.
Yeah,
and if you look at the league, if you look at the league and you look at the size, you don't see Casey Tominaga's out.
There's not a lot of Steph Curry's for a reason.
Right.
Because very few people can do what he can do.
Right.
So that's where he's got an uphill battle, but I mean, either way, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, he's going to make a lot of money.
I mean, what he did to Terrence Shannon was in the first.
That was eye-opening.
Game in Champaign.
Yeah. That was eye-opening. Good point, Sean.
I mean, that was a moment like, okay, the best player in the Big Ten,
best and then
defender.
Terrence Shannon came back in the Big Ten tournament, fully intent on making sure that didn't happen again.
True.
But I mean, he's considered one of the best on-ball defenders in the conference.
Right.
He lit him up.
When Casey is true competitive pro career ends, he should play for the Globetrotters. Can you imagine just him doing his trick shots and all that things?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. The Globetrotters still exist.
So
Not like when we were kids.
So going back to the off season, first week in June is when the team reports. So you want to talk about like a deadline? Like ideally, they'd like to have their roster set
first week in June
before June,
Okay.
because that's when guys can start reporting back to campus. Most of the team's still here. A lot of guys are just like back home visiting family, whatnot. But they'll all be back in June for that first start of individual small group workouts. And so again, that's like if you're looking for like the next like time frame of like when they'd like to have things in place, that's probably the first deadline, so to speak.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Lots
you,
to
Robin.
keep up on. Big Ten baseball tournament all weekend here in Omaha. Follow Grant Hansen for all of our coverage on site at TD Ameritrade, or I guess Schwab Field now. I get the
Schwab Field. Charles Schwab Field. Yeah,
The
Charles
Chuck.
Schwab Field.
in Omaha. But if you're not a member, again, try us out at HuskerOnline.com. 2 months for $1. Promo code NU1 for Abby Barmore, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett. I'm Sean Callahan.